Okay, good morning and welcome to hopefully the first in a series of webinars from the team here at Nuffield Road Medical Centre. And the purpose of these webinars will be to share information and guidance that the host of organisations out there can provide to all of our patients. And this morning, I'm absolutely delighted to be sharing this webinar with Cambridge Citizens Advice. And I'd first of all just like to introduce both myself and Chloe from Cambridge Citizens Advice. So I'm Sam Sales and I'm social prescriber at Cambridge Nuffield Road Medical Centre. And as I said, I'm delighted to be here with Chloe Barnard from Cambridge Citizens Advice. So welcome, Chloe, and thank you for taking the time at this busy time for many of us to share with us some information for our patients.
Hi Sam, yes, it's lovely to join you this morning. So my name's Chloe Barnard. I work at the Cambridge Citizens Advice Bureau. I'm a specialist money advisor there, but at Nuffield Road Outreach we offer general advice, so ranging benefits, debt, employment, money advice issues, budgeting. So we're just here this morning to just talk through a bit of that for you and how that may help any Nuffield patients, certainly during this sort of difficult times for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Chloe. And yeah, absolutely, as Chloe said, it's difficult times for many, and there is lots of advice out there. And Chloe is going to share with us some of the common themes of advice that the Citizens Advice are giving at the moment. Okay, so we've got about 30 minutes and we are going to cover the top 4-5 areas that are common questions that are being asked of Cambridge Citizens Advice. And those areas are, we're going to look at work, we're going to look at benefits, rent and mortgages, and also debt. And you know, we know all of those affect our lives, and at the moment, at the time of coronavirus, it is adding to a lot of stress around some of these common areas. So without further ado, let's move into the area of work and start to talk about some of the issues that have come to light as a result of the current situation. Okay, so let's just start off with as we know, a lot of employees at the moment have been what's now termed as furloughed. And one of the issues is, what are my rights when I've been furloughed? So Chloe, can you help us in this area?
Yes, certainly. So we're seeing a lot of queries coming forward at the moment about the furlough scheme. As the link below sort of states, the key information on this is going to be on the Government UK website and also the ACAS website, which is an employment specialist agency that we would refer to quite normally in our day-to-day roles anyway. But Gov UK always has the most up-to-date information, and if you're looking about how the furlough scheme can apply to yourself in your own employment, that would be my first sort of tip to head there and have a little look, because it is updating day to day as the scheme evolves. The key things to remember with furlough is that it does apply not just to people in a traditional fixed term contract employment role. It can help you if you're an agency worker, if you're on a 0 hours contract, if you're having to stay at home to care for children because of the childcare that was previously arranged has now had to close. It does benefit an awful lot of people. So it's worth checking on there as to which area you'd maybe fit into that, and then discussing that with your employer. One of the key things to remember with it, it's not something as an employee you can opt to be a part of. Your employer has to make that decision. But if you're in a position where they're not maybe willing to furlough you, it can be a good way to negotiate with them if you find information online or through speaking with Citizens Advice that actually means the group that you're in would be eligible to be furloughed. It sort of covers up to 80% of your monthly wages, up to a cap of £2,500, and it's currently in place for 3 months. The government may look to extend that, but the latest information is online really. So that would be the place to certainly have a little bit of a look.
Oh, that's really helpful, Chloe. And one of the things that you say there, which is really important, and I don't think has been spoken about too much, is that it does apply to agency and those who are on 0 hours as well. I think we tend to think about it for those people who are on permanent contracts as opposed to other types of contracts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
no,
really,
it's definitely worth having a little look and just seeing, you know, it doesn't affect, if you're self-employed, it's not going to be the suitable option for you, but you know, it does cover a large amount of people. And in kind of rolling out the scheme, I think as it's evolved from when it was initially announced, you know, from campaigning from different groups, has realised it's got to include, you know, the variation of work contracts that we have in the UK.
yeah, absolutely. And that's part of a trend that we're seeing, isn't it? To make sure that that support is there across those different contract types. So yeah, brilliant. Some helpful links there as well if people do want to explore it further. But as you're saying, it's going to be a common theme through this discussion is, you know, contact yourselves. That's what you're there for. We can give some very specific advice in people's circumstances.
Certainly, yeah. No, you know, so our main bureau is closed at the moment. We are offering our advice line still and a web chat service. And for Nuffield patients, we've got the outreach advisor, myself, based there. So, you know, definitely get in touch.
Absolutely. And just around the work side of things, Chloe, what happens if somebody is off sick and they're off sick with coronavirus symptoms? You know, is it different to if you're off sick with other illnesses?
So it's slightly different in that if you're off sick due to coronavirus symptoms, and that's off sick from PAYE employment, so not self-employment, but if you're off work from a paid role from an employer and you experience coronavirus symptoms, statutory sick pay in a lot of cases is payable. It's payable from day one, but you do need to check your eligibility for statutory sick pay. The Citizens Advice website has quite an elaborate list of varying factors that can impact your eligibility for it. You are still eligible if you're on a 0 hours contract, but you're not eligible if you're self-employed. So if you are self-employed, you need to possibly look at other benefit options. But the statutory sick pay rate for those employed is $94.85 a week, and your employer pays that. So it's not an application you need to do yourself. You simply just need to provide a sick note or an isolation note to your employer, and they will then arrange it as they would arrange your normal salary to be paid. So it'll be on your pay slip. So it's really just about speaking to your employer, checking your eligibility for that statutory sick pay. If that's not payable, then you can look at other benefit claims. Statutory sick pay is only payable for 28 weeks. So at the end of that period, if you are still unwell with coronavirus or another sickness, you then would move on to a different benefit if you remain sick, called employment and support allowance. So it's just about checking which benefit fits your situation, reading into a little bit of both of them, and you know, if you're not sure, then speak to us and we can try and sort of navigate which one's going to best fit your circumstances. But speak to your employer if you're employed. If you're not employed, it's looking at something called the employment and support allowance from day one, and checking your eligibility for that. So that's when you're sick with some sort of symptoms for coronavirus or otherwise.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Chloe. And one of the things that you mentioned there was the isolation note. What's that?
So with coronavirus, obviously, unlike other illnesses, you can't just visit your GP to have a consultation about it. However, GPs are available to provide isolation notes remotely, or you can call NHS 111 to get one. So there's the two avenues there, because obviously GPs are inundated at the moment. So that to take a little bit of pressure off them, NHS 111 is the other place to call to discuss your symptoms and, you know, determine. Some employers will sort of take the word for it, but if they are asking you for an isolation note or a sick note effectively, then speaking to NHS 111 or your GP is the way to go about that.
Okay, thanks, Chloe. That's really helpful to signpost people there. What's the situation? It may not be something that you're dealing with so much at the moment, but if people are shielding, so they've been advised to stay home, what's the situation there with regards to people's work?
So again, it's about letting your employer know, and there's clear guidance on the furlough scheme that does enable this to be paid for shielding employees, or if members of your family are shielding, so you're also having to adopt that. So there's a key section on the Gov.uk website about shielding and the furlough scheme. You can't simultaneously have the statutory sick pay and the furlough pay. It's one or the other, but it's about working to just determine which one's suitable for you, and checking the Gov.uk for the latest guidance on it, or speaking to us, and we can help to determine which stage that is. But no, shielding employees can be sort of covered within that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you. That's really helpful, because I know that's one of the questions I've had a few times when talking to to people that have inquired. So thanks for that. That's really helpful. One of the areas that we've spoken about is self-employed, there's been a lot of discussion about support for self-employed whose work has stopped or really reduced during this period of coronavirus. What's the situation there?
So the government has launched a self-employment support scheme to sort of support those that are self-employed it wasn't initially announced under the furlough rules that came out. So this scheme works slightly differently in that it's based on your tax returns. So they're taking the last 3 tax returns and an average of those profits over that period, and it's up to 80% of those profits, with that cap again of 2,500. With this scheme, it's in terms of applying for it, you can't do that. It's HMRC that will notify you of your eligibility into that scheme. So they will write out to you as an individual. In mid-May is kind of the timescale with looking for payments in June at this point. So there's nothing really that you need to do aside from it might be worth having a look at the eligibility criteria to see how that's going to fit. Now, whereas the furlough scheme, it's 80% of your wages that are paid month 1, month 2, and then month 3. With the self-employment scheme, it's going to be a lump sum payment, and that will likely come in June. So obviously that doesn't help people, particularly now that are self-employed. So that's where they should be looking at benefit, if they need help with their income, looking at benefit eligibility. Universal credit is one that's sort of often suiting self-employment, but you need to be mindful of any savings you've got, and just checking your eligibility on the Gov.uk calculators. That's kind of where the best place to look is at this point. If you are eligible under this scheme and you're already in the process of receiving universal credit by the time June comes round, this lump sum payment that's going to come in will be treated as earnings for that universal credit assessment period. So your payment will be reduced accordingly, but it shouldn't stop people making those claims now in order to get that support. If you're looking for more support on a business front, there's the business interruption loan scheme that self-employed individuals can apply for as well, and there's all the information on Gov.uk about that scheme and how you would go about looking at an application for that. But it's through your bank, through your business bank, that you would look into that further.
Oh, that's really helpful, especially knowing as well that people can apply for the universal credit now, because it is about having income now and not perhaps waiting until June when that money will come through.
Certainly, yes. No, I think it's just seeing what the options are really to support you at this time. The difference between the self-employment scheme that's come about and the furlough scheme is when you've been furloughed, you can't undertake any work for your employer. There's some sort of loopholes around training and volunteering which you can continue to do, but comparably with self-employment, you can continue to work. So you can, if the lockdown that we're experiencing at the moment eases up, and your business is in a position and available to work in a way that's safe to do so in line with government guidance on social distancing and other measures, then you can continue to work and still be eligible to receive that support come June. If your business has made a loss, you're likely to not be eligible, sort of in those previous tax years, you're likely to not be eligible for that scheme. But if your business was trading on a profit, because it is based on profits, and you can now actually start working a little bit again, you shouldn't not be able to do that and have the risk or the worry that you're not going to receive that loan payment that doesn't need to be repaid in June. You can continue to work in a way that's safe to do so, and still receive that.
That is so helpful. And just to clarify, if
Mm.
you do work now and
Yeah,
receive the lump sum in June, do you have to
yeah,
pay that back? How's that dealt with?
no. So you won't have to pay that back. They are putting in place the reason that you couldn't, if you started self-employment and you couldn't complete the tax return for the 2018-19 year, the
Mm-hmm.
reason it's not eligible for those people is because of the fact to prevent fraud. However,
Okay.
you can still look to operate your business, and it's just about ensuring that you don't need to declare any of that money back. The loan does not need to be repaid, and you don't actually need to demonstrate how the COVID-19 has affected your business. They will just be looking at people's profits and paying accordingly in relation to that. So you don't need to almost demonstrate the hardship you've been undergoing. It's just a matter of, if you have been struggling as a result of this virus, when you receive the notification from HMRC, providing you fit all the other criteria for it on profits, it's then just informing them of what the latest situation regarding your employment is. But you won't need to repay that, no.
That's really helpful. I'm sure that's put a lot of people's mind at ease as well, especially that ability to continue, as you say, where it's safe to do so, to continue
Yeah.
working and not have that worry about that repayment and what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so the business loan I mentioned, that one is a
yeah,
loan scheme that would need to be repaid, but the
yeah.
self-employment payment you'd get as an individual, that one is, yeah, you don't need to pay that one back.
Perfect. And what we'll do for everybody is put that information at the end of the slides for the business
Yeah,
information loan scheme. So if anybody does want to have a look
yeah,
at it, we'll add that
yeah.
to the slides as well. So brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you.
No, it's fine.
Um, we touched on benefits.
Mm,
Universal credit you've mentioned a few times.
yeah,
What's the situation regarding what benefits can people claim? And I appreciate, and I'm sure everybody does, it is a complex area.
oh,
Um,
certainly, yeah.
and,
And a lot of people are facing it for the first time, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. And
Um,
I would straight away flag, citizens advice are there to, to talk you through. And the way I tend to say to people is they'll hold your hand through the
yeah,
process as well.
yeah,
Um,
completely.
but, but Chloe, what advice can you give at this time?
So if you're internet capable, I would suggest you firstly go on Gov.uk to have a look at the benefit calculators. Simply put in the search box benefit calculator and 3 different ones come up, and you can use any
Right.
3 of them. That's the best way to kind of start it off, because you have to answer questions that are directly related to your finances in your household. So who's living there? What are their ages? What are your savings? What is your income? So those are the questions that the benefit agency would look to ask, and that's why the calculators are quite useful at just giving you an indication of what your eligibility is. If
Okay.
you're not internet capable, or you've got a complex situation, or you're just not sure really where to start, speak to us at Citizens Advice. We can have a look at what benefits you may be eligible to claim, how that claim process works, and how it's working at the moment with the COVID-19 circumstances, because a lot of them are normally face-to-face assessments at some stage in that application
Right.
process. But at the moment, there's workarounds in place. There's phone assessments, so there's different things that can be done and that are being done. So we can kind of offer the guidance on that.
Right.
The key with the benefits as well is, if you're new to claiming benefits altogether, there's possibly, depending on savings levels and other areas, it's maybe a universal credit claim you could be looking towards. If you're
Okay.
already on existing benefits, as a number of those have now been replaced by universal credit, what Citizens Advice can help with is a better off calculation. So seeing what you're claiming now, could that be maximised? But if it is maximised, would that mean a transition over to universal credit? So we can weigh up the most financially beneficial outcome for clients in their circumstances. So whether they're claiming benefits for the first time, or just looking where they can maximise their income combined with benefits, or benefits alone, we can sort of assist to signpost what's going to be the financially most positive outcome for them.
Gosh, the better off calculation. That's absolutely brilliant. And I'm sure will help people try and
Yeah,
navigate through what the current situation is.
yeah, yeah.
And interesting you mentioned there about all the information that's needed, you know, to do these assessments. So if people are getting in touch with you, is it quite helpful that they come with, you know, information about their savings, perhaps what their salaries are?
Yeah, so the more specific information that can be provided, the more specific and accurate that calculation we do is likely to be. So, you know, if you're on benefits already, getting those benefit award letters that you've likely been sent over a period of time, and hopefully a new one actually, because April resulted in the annual uprating in benefit rates. So a lot of people have actually got recent correspondence about what their new benefit rates are. So collating that information together. If you're not on benefits, just information on your salary, so your pay slips. If you're self-employed, the most recent tax return. And then information on your savings. What's the latest balance on your savings? So whether that's looking at a bank statement or getting out a cashing in book, just something to hand so we can work through that information. Obviously, housing comes a lot into benefits. So if you're renting, or if you've got a mortgage, how much is your rent? How much is your mortgage? Whether that's weekly, monthly, whatever frequency you manage that on, just have that information to hand.
Perfect. No, that's brilliant. And if somebody is furloughed, they can get in touch and talk about perhaps universal credit, then that may be able to help them. Yeah,
that can be claimed simultaneously alongside that. If as a result of the furlough, you know, dropping from maybe the 100% to 80%, if they are going to struggle to manage, we can put that 80% salary into the calculator to determine how that will be treated for benefits at the moment. On the Gov.uk website, actually, for the furlough information, if you look at the employer's view on furlough, the sort of employer's page on it, which it hyperlinks through to, there gives a calculation on how the furlough pay is calculated. So if you wanted to see what your 80% salary is going to look like if you're yet to receive one of those, or 90% or 100%, then you can, there's the calculation that's being used by HMRC on Gov.uk, so you can, you know, put your own finances into that as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's helpful. And I think we'll add that link as well to this. So if people want to have a look, they can go to that. Yeah, brilliant. And you mentioned there about rent and mortgages, and that ties nicely into our final area. What help is available for people if they've got rent or mortgage situations?
Okay, so to sort of firstly touch on the rent arrears side of things, which I think we will probably come on to in a later slide. But if there are any debt there are no evictions taking place for social or private rented for a period of 3 months. So there's that concern of not being made homeless over that period that can put everyone's mind at ease. However, it's important to remember your rent and your mortgage payments are priority bills. So when we do sort of debt assessments, we look at what's a priority bill and a non-priority debt and bill maybe that goes along with that. So the priorities are always going to be your rent, your council tax, your energy, any magistrate court fines, things like that are priority to pay. The non-priority essential bills are maybe things like your telecommunications package, so your big Sky bills, things like that, looking at where you can make savings in those, because a lot of those companies are actually offering reduced payments over this period because they can't offer the same services. So it's important just assessing what's the most important thing within your bills that you need to pay at the moment. So, you know, if you need to make use of the mortgage payment holidays that are being offered for a period of 3 months, get in touch with your lenders on that. We'll put a link at the end, I'm sure, to the Money Saving Expert website, which has a list of a lot of banks and how to go about applying for those payment holidays, because a lot of them can be done online. So you just simply follow the links on that website and you can put in a request, and then you'll have a call with your lender, no doubt, to just consider how that would affect you and whether that would be suitable. For the rent side of things, if you're struggling to afford the rent, that's where the benefits can come in to help. And you can look at whether or not housing benefit, if you're above pensionable age, would come into play, or universal credit with the housing element that pays out. You know, it's not to say with a mortgage you can't look at benefits, because you know you can claim universal credit simultaneously with that. It's just the rent fits slightly more quickly into the picture. With mortgage, it is a bit of a delay in getting a help towards the interest on that. But looking at benefit claims, whatever your housing situation is going to be key if you're struggling. And if you are struggling to afford that rent and you want to look at maybe some budgeting where you can make savings, whether that's negotiating with your telecoms providers, making savings on your food shopping, energy switches, insurances, speak to Citizens Advice. We as our normal day-to-day role, we put budgets together for people, so assessing the income with the expenditure and what money that leaves, what surplus is there, or if there isn't one, what debt solutions may be applied. So speak to us, we can help you prepare that information and look at what your options are to ensure that you afford the priority bills.
Oh, that's brilliant. And you mentioned there that you can help when you're looking at the benefits assessments around what support is available for the rent with everybody as well.
Completely, yes. Yeah, we can assess which ones are going to fit for those that housing circumstance. Whether that is the housing benefit, which for people above pensionable age, as a couple or an individual, it would suit, whereas universal credit is more of a working age benefit, which has this housing element that's payable. There's also information on Cambridge City Council website, which I know a lot of Nuffield patients fall into that kind of location. There's a lot of information there on the housing benefit rules, so you can have a read on there. Equally, it's on Gov.uk and the Citizens Advice website to see which benefit is going to suit you.
Oh, that's brilliant. Gosh, so much information there. And we will make sure that we put the links out for everybody as well. And, I can't emphasize enough, contact the Citizens Advice and they will help you through this. And, as Chloe said at the start, she is there to support our Nuffield patients, which is, absolutely brilliant. And we'll say more about that at the end of the presentation.
One other benefit also to mention is council tax reduction. So it's another one that doesn't always get sort of thought of in the same capacity as the rent and the universal credit, but council tax reduction is completely separate from universal credit. It solely looks at affordability to pay the council tax, and that can be applied for on Cambridge City Council's website, so you can look at your eligibility for that there. Again, savings and income feature into the eligibility. But Cambridge City Council or your local council's website will have information on how to make that claim. That's
brilliant. That's perfect. And interesting you say is one of those that tends to not get thought about. So important people do take a look at that as well. And again, we'll put that link out with this presentation.
Great.
Okay, and the final area for us to look at, and I know, Chloe, you touched on this actually throughout the discussion, is around debt. And this, is something that is affecting people more because of the coronavirus, but it is something that, people were dealing with prior to the coronavirus situation. And it's something that we need to be thinking about going forwards as well. What sort of advice are you giving at the moment?
Okay, so a lot, it's been a bit gradual, but a lot of debt collectors, agencies have come forward and offered sort of alternative and more flexible solutions as a result of the coronavirus. For example, loans and credit cards are all offering 3-month payment holidays if needed on the loans and credit cards. So you can contact the provider, speak to them about that. You have up until the 9th of July to contact your loan or your credit card provider if you are struggling with those bills. But interest will continue to accrue over that period. If you agree a payment holiday with the lender, it won't affect your credit report. So that's kind of reassuring.
That's important
to know. It's sort of an emergency measure that the top 3 credit reference agencies in the UK have all signed up to.
Interesting.
Now, if you were struggling before coronavirus hit with your bills, it may not be suitable for you to now have a payment holiday, because the idea behind them is that once this sort of things ease and society goes back to a little more of normality, that people can resume those payments and kind of look at how they can address the amount that accrued over that period, including interest. So if you were in debt before that, there's the chance that actually when we come out of this, you may not be in a position to repay. So if your loans or companies or credit card company says to you, well, you already owed us this money and you hadn't paid that back, now this isn't suitable for you, what they should offer is alternatives. And whether that, and that's probably looking at a longer term repayment plan, maybe token offers in this short term period, to then look at the view of increasing that moving forward. So when you start having those conversations with your loan and your credit cards, then, you know, that's where we can come into it. We can negotiate on your behalf. We can pull together a budget sheet that assesses what is affordable for you to pay and what's maybe not, and we can help you with those conversations. So, you know, do a bit of a fact find with your credit debt companies, and then come to us and we can see where we can go from there with it a little bit. Also, another debt that's quite common is overdrafts. So overdrafts on your bank accounts, up to £500, if your overdraft is 0 to 500, is interest free. So they can't accrue interest on that period, and there's no charges. So it's just about, if you fit within that limit, speak to your bank about this and make sure that you're not being charged for that overdraft as you would maybe normally be. And any amount that has accrued since they've announced these changes should be refunded to you. So it's just about checking your bank, checking if your overdraft is within that limit and what help can be offered. If it's over that, then you've got to start looking at possibly just negotiating a little bit with the bank and your situation. But again, come speak to us. We'll look at the finances and we can see what maybe is going to suit you. And you've got up until the 14th of July to make the most of that with the banks, and ensuring that if your overdraft is there, how is it being managed? But on the links at the bottom of this page, you've got to Money Saving Expert. They've got there on each specific bill, whether it's loans, credit cards, catalogues. Motor finance is a big one that's come out. Also, payment holidays there, whether that's PCP or hire purchase. So depending on what your motor finance agreement is, the majority part have all got on board with a 3-month payment holiday. If you are struggling, have a read on these links about that, see how that would suit, and obviously speak to your motor finance company as well to see what they're offering.
That's brilliant. And some great links there, as you say, that cover the range of issues that people may be facing. And this is an area, I think, it does affect us physically, mentally, and it is adding an element of stress at the moment. And again, sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees on these things. So, contact Citizens Advice to help work through this. Some really useful links there. So brilliant. Thanks, Chloe.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so that takes us through the 5 key areas that we were going to cover this morning. We put the contact details there for Cambridge Citizens Advice. And just a reminder that Chloe is here for our Nuffield patients. In normal times, Chloe's here on a Friday morning, has 3 dedicated appointments for our patients, which is, it's fantastic for us to have that support there from Chloe. And Chloe can be contacted on the Citizens Advice Bureau line, or you can contact Chloe through the medical centre here, and our receptionist can book those appointments for you as well. So Chloe, thank you so much for your time, and here at the practice we really appreciate your support that you give to our patients.
No, well, it's nice to be able to put something out there that's hopefully a bit more accessible for the patients at the moment. As Sam said, I am based at Nuffield, but just to let you aware, if maybe you're engaging with this but you're not a Nuffield patient, we do have an outreach advisor based at Arbury Road Medical Centre, East Farnwell Medical Centre, Longstanton and Willingham. So they're the other GPs that we are also based at. So it's not myself, it's different advisors. But if you fall into one of those GP catchment areas, speak to the GP about getting in touch with the Citizens Advice member that's based there. But, certainly contact the surgery, contact the helpline, and we can go from there if you do want any extra support with anything we've covered.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you, Chloe. Appreciate it. And I hope that everybody found this really useful. I know myself, it's always good to hear the advice that Citizens Advice are giving out, and you always pick up some more information about where to go for advice. So thanks, Chloe, and thanks to everybody for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you.